Chapter 13. The Times of Trial. When knowledge spread across the lands, when the skies were opened by the discovery of airways, when writing returned to the hands of men, and when the halls of knowledge rose as beacons of understanding, the world entered a new epoch, an age that would come to be known as the Times of Trial. In this era, the principles of the Third Age were no longer mere teachings. They were living tests, measured against the winds, the rivers, and the hearts of humankind. The trials came in countless forms: storms that tore through villages, floods that swallowed fields, droughts that cracked the earth, plagues that swept silently, and harvests that failed when hope seemed fullest. Yet the greatest tests were not of body alone. Moral choices, social reckonings, and ethical dilemmas arose at every turn. People were called to decide how knowledge, wealth, and responsibility might be shared, how disputes could be settled, and how the bonds of cooperation could endure. Each decision left a mark, each action was recorded, becoming a lesson for generations yet unborn. Cities became living fortresses of observation and thought. Watchers measured rivers and winds, traced the paths of migrating beasts, and read the heavens for omens. Libraries and halls of knowledge were more than stores of memory. They were crucibles of insight. Experiments were born, strategies tested, and every triumph and failure chronicled. Slowly, a grand vision emerged: the dance of humanity with nature, the interplay of society and wisdom, the fragile balance of all things. Through these trials, the moral fabric of society was refined. Those who acted with courage and foresight in moments of peril became legends in their own time, teachers for the world. Mistakes, though costly, were transformed into sacred lessons. In this way, the people learned that wisdom is forged in the fire of action, and that responsibility, patience, and foresight are the pillars upon which lasting societies are built. Innovation, too, was born of adversity. Machines roared to life, waterworks channeled rivers, canals stitched lands together, airships plied the skies, and instruments measured the stars. Every challenge sparked new thought, new invention, new understanding. The cities discovered that progress is not in conquest or accumulation, but in harmony with the world and with one another. The trials left an indelible mark on culture and memory. Festivals arose to honor not just triumph, but courage in the face of failure. Songs told of storms endured and mistakes learned. Ceremonies preserved the wisdom of experience. Tales of bravery, foresight, and unity were passed from parent to child. Each city kept its own chronicle of trials, yet across the land the same truths shone: responsibility, patience, cooperation, and vigilance. The times of trial reshaped the bonds between peoples. Alliances were tested and reforged, knowledge and resources shared, and experience exchanged. Those who sought to endure alone often fell, while those who acted together survived and thrived. In this crucible, the trials became more than hardship. They became a school of collective thought, a forge in which civilization itself was tempered. At last, the era revealed its deepest truth. Wisdom is born not of learning alone, but of living what is learned. Knowledge, writing, and craft are powerless unless wielded with care, courage, and foresight. Every storm, every conflict, every failure became a teacher, strengthening humanity, binding its people, and preparing them for the ages to come. The chronicles of this epoch speak of generations who measured, tested, chose, fell, and rose again. They tell of how community, ethics, knowledge, and nature merged into a single living whole. The times of trial shaped the Third Age into a society capable not merely of survival, but of enduring with wisdom, justice, and foresight, a foundation for the eternal unfolding of the world. Chapter 14. The Connections of the Cities. From the trials of nature and society arose a profound truth: no city could stand alone. The connections of the cities became the lifeblood of the Third Age, a living web of knowledge, resources, experience, and responsibility. These bonds were not merely physical, they stretched into the realms of intellect, culture, and ethics. Rivers were joined by canals, roads were strengthened, and airways charted with care. Trading ships, flying vessels, and observation canoes carried goods, scrolls, plants, machines, and travelers from city to city. Every path was mapped, watched, and recorded, so that the flow of knowledge and supplies moved with precision, efficiency, and safety. Yet these connections were more than routes of transport. They were channels of exchange, collaboration, and shared decision-making. Alliances deepened. Chroniclers and observers traveled tirelessly to share experience, verify knowledge, and harmonize methods. Cities learned from one another. Techniques of agriculture, mastery of water, remedies, machinery, and philosophical insight wove together into a network of wisdom. A new social order blossomed. Each city remained autonomous, yet all were threads in a greater tapestry. Responsibility was no longer local but universal. A choice in one city rippled across the network. Conflicts found resolution in diplomacy, ethical reflection, and common law. Violence became a last resort. Wisdom and cooperation prevailed. The connections fueled intellectual growth. Teachers, chroniclers, and explorers moved swiftly, spreading knowledge, testing hypotheses, and coordinating experiments. Halls of knowledge became nodes in a vast network, where ideas, experience, and principles flowed unceasingly. Every city drew strength from the collective memory of the network, every decision illuminated by the lessons of distant neighbors. Cultural bonds thrived as well. Festivals, ceremonies, music, and art traveled across borders. Stories, legends, and philosophical reflections shaped customs, instilled shared values, and honored the wisdom of the ancients. Each city contributed to the diversity and unity of the Third Age, weaving a collective identity from many voices. The network taught the imperatives of sustainability. Resources were shared, surpluses offered, losses borne together. Cities built early warning systems, coordinated water and agriculture, and stood by one another in times of crisis. The network became a living organism, each city a vital node, each action a pulse within it. Philosophically, the connections deepened the understanding of freedom, responsibility, and ethics. Freedom was not the absence of rules, but the power to act in harmony with others. Responsibility extended beyond borders, embracing the entire community. Through these bonds, humanity learned that survival, progress, and wisdom were possible only through cooperation, mindfulness, and reverence for nature. In the end, the connections of the cities marked the Third Age's maturity. The recognition that individual strength is hollow without networks, that knowledge, culture, and resources flourish through collaboration, and that wisdom arises from balancing autonomy with community. Cities became not isolated refugees, but living, interconnected networks where knowledge, experience, and responsibility flowed as one. Chronicles of the era tell of countless journeys, alliances, and acts of mutual aid. They speak of the evolutionary power of connection, how cities that worked together endured, and how humanity learned that true strength lies not in isolation, but in the bonds that tie it together. Chapter 15: The Age of Harmony. After centuries of observation, exploration, trial, and connection, the Third Age reached its fullest expression, the Age of Harmony. In this era, humanity came to understand with clarity that man, nature, knowledge, and society are inseparably intertwined, and that true progress can only be achieved through balance, wisdom, and responsibility. Cities had transformed into living organisms, where halls of knowledge, aerial pathways, waterways, observatories, and cultivated lands were woven into a single coherent fabric. No city saw itself as isolated. All were threads in a vast global tapestry through which ideas, resources, information, and responsibility flowed. Chronicles speak of cities whose plans, decisions, and rituals resonated with perfect synchrony, an unprecedented testament to collective intelligence and cooperation. Education in the Age of Harmony was universal and integrative. From childhood to adulthood, all were instructed in the principles of observation, the laws of nature, philosophy, technology, and ethics. Experiments were conducted not merely to test, but to reflect, discuss, and situate within the wisdom of millennia. Each act, each discovery, each choice was understood as part of a greater whole. Nature was no longer an adversary, but a teacher and companion. The masters of nature passed their knowledge down, so that agriculture became sustainable. Water flows were carefully tended, animal husbandry harmonized with the seasons, and urban design followed the rhythms of the world. Disasters were foreseen, natural forces comprehended and respected. Cities lived with nature, not against it, and each generation bore the duty of preserving this equilibrium. Culturally, the Age of Harmony blossomed in art, music, literature, architecture, and philosophy. Stories, songs, and symbols mirrored not only life, but the principles of collaboration, patience, responsibility, and observation. Festivals and ceremonies became living lessons. Each event intertwined community, nature, and knowledge, allowing the people to absorb the essence of the third age in every heartbeat of daily life. Star charts, halls of knowledge, airways, and the networks of cities had now attained their full power. Every discovery, every innovation, every philosophy was tested for its endurance within the system. Errors were not hidden but examined, transformed into new insight. Each deed, each judgment, each observation contributed to the stability and growth of society. Philosophically, the Age of Harmony crowned the teachings of the ancients. Knowledge, power, nature, and society were no longer separate realms, but parts of a vast interconnected whole. Freedom was understood as the capacity for responsible action, power as the duty to wield knowledge for the common good, progress as the alignment of technology, ethics, and the natural world. Harmony could only exist when every decision was made in full awareness of its consequences for the entire network. The Age of Harmony was also a time of contemplation. Observers turned their gaze inward, reflecting upon their role, their responsibility, their impact. Each generation inherited the legacy of the ancients, the masters of nature, the chroniclers, and the explorers, expanding it, weaving it into collective wisdom. Chronicles tell of memory systems, symbols, and rituals that carried the accumulated knowledge and experience of all generations into the future. In the end, the Age of Harmony was more than a mere span of years. It was the very embodiment of the Third Age itself. Humanity, nature, knowledge, culture, and ethics merged into a dynamic, living system. Every city, hall, observer, and action was a thread in this network, pulsing in continuous exchange of wisdom, responsibility, and experience. The Chronicles conclude with a singular truth. Harmony is not a fixed state, but an eternal process, a ceaseless dialogue between humanity, nature, and time. Yet they also testify that through patience, wisdom, and interconnectedness, humanity is capable of creating a world where progress and responsibility, freedom and ethics, knowledge and nature coexist in equilibrium. The Age of Harmony stands as the radiant legacy of the Third Age, a testament to the heights humanity can reach when knowledge, responsibility, and wisdom act in perfect concord.